The blindfold was too tight, cutting into my temples and making my head throb. My wrists were zip-tied behind my back, the plastic digging into my skin with every breath. The van's engine rumbled beneath me, the floor cold and metallic against my cheek where I'd been thrown like a sack of potatoes. I tried to remember how I'd gotten here. One moment I'd been leaving the library, my arms full of books for my graduate thesis on Renaissance art. The next, someone had grabbed me from behind, a cloth pressed over my mouth and nose, the sickly sweet smell of chemicals filling my lungs before everything went black. How long had I been unconscious? Minutes? Hours? My phone was gone. My watch, too. I had no way to know. The van hit a pothole, bouncing me painfully against the floor. I bit back a whimper, not wanting to draw attention to the fact that I was awake. Maybe if they thought I was still unconscious, I'd have a chance to escape when they stopped. Except I had no idea who they were or why they'd taken me. Voices drifted from the front of the van. Male, speaking in what sounded like Italian. I'd taken 2 semesters in college, enough to catch fragments. Something about the target, the boss, and she better be worth it. Target? Worth it. I was a broke grad student living on ramen and library coffee. What could anyone possibly want with me? The van slowed, turning sharply. We'd left the smooth highway for rougher roads, gravel crunching under tires. Then we stopped, the engine cutting off, leaving only the sound of my own panicked breathing. "Get her out!" someone commanded. The accent was thick, but the English clear. "Careful. Boss wants her unmarked." Hands grabbed me, hauling me out of the van with zero gentleness despite the command. My feet hit the ground, legs buckling after however long I'd been lying cramped in the van. Someone caught me before I fell completely, his grip impersonal and efficient. "Walk," he ordered, pushing me forward. I stumbled blindly, my captors guiding me with rough hands on my shoulders. Cold air hit my face. We were outside, somewhere that smelled like pine trees and damp earth. A cabin, somewhere rural? We climbed steps, then crossed a threshold into warmth. A door closed behind us with a heavy thud that sounded final, irrevocable. In here. I was pushed into a chair, the zip ties finally cut from my wrists. Blood rushed back into my hands with painful tingles, but I didn't dare move them. "Stay," footsteps retreated. A door closed, then silence. I sat frozen, afraid to remove the blindfold without permission, afraid of what I'd see if I did. My mind raced through possibilities. Human trafficking, ransom, mistaken identity. Each option was worse than the last. Finally, unable to bear the darkness any longer, I reached up with shaking hands and pulled off the blindfold. I was in an office. Expensive, masculine, with dark wood furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A massive desk dominated the space, and behind it sat a man who made my breath catch in my throat. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, devastatingly handsome in a dangerous way. Dark hair swept back from a face of sharp angles and strong features. Olive skin, full lips, and a jaw shadowed with precisely maintained stubble. But it was his eyes that held me frozen, dark brown, almost black, assessing me with an intensity that felt physical. He wore all black, expensive shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms covered in intricate tattoos. More ink peeked from his collar, suggesting extensive work across his chest. His hands, resting casually on the desk, bore tattooed knuckles and heavy rings that looked more like weapons than jewelry. He looked like exactly what he probably was, a very dangerous man. "You're awake," he observed, his accent Italian, his voice a low rumble that sent involuntary shivers down my spine. "Good, I have questions. Who are you? Why did you kidnap me?" My voice came out stronger than I felt. He tilted his head, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "I'll ask the questions. You'll answer them. We'll see how this goes from there. I want to call the police. I want a lawyer. I have rights, you have nothing." He leaned forward slightly. "Right now, you have only what I allow you to have. The sooner you understand that, the easier this will be." Fear spiked through me, but I forced myself to meet his eyes. "I don't know what you want, but I'm nobody. I'm a grad student. I have maybe $200 in my bank account and student loans that'll take me 30 years to pay off. If this is about ransom, you grabbed the wrong person." Something flickered across his face. "Your name." "What?" "Tell me your name. Why?" "You're the one who kidnapped me. Shouldn't you already know? His jaw tightened slightly. Your name, Sophia. Sophia Blake. I watched his expression carefully. Does that mean anything to you? He was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes never leaving my face. Then he pulled out his phone, tapping something, his expression growing darker with each passing second. Finally, he set down the phone and looked at me with an intensity that made me press back in my chair. Sophia Blake, graduate student at Columbia, studying art history, 27 years old, lives alone in a studio apartment in Morningside Heights. No criminal record, no connections to organized crime, no reason whatsoever for me to be interested in you. Then why? Because my men were supposed to grab Sophia Bellini, daughter of Antonio Bellini, who's been stealing from my operations for 6 months. We were going to use her as leverage to make him return what he took. He stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. But they grabbed the wrong Sophia. My heart sank. Mistaken identity? Yes. He stopped in front of me, looking down with an expression that mixed annoyance with something else I couldn't identify. Which creates a problem. Then let me go. I won't tell anyone. I didn't see faces. I don't know where I am. You saw me. He crouched, bringing his face level with mine. You know what I look like. You could identify me to police, to federal agents, to anyone who asks. I won't, I swear. I'll forget this ever happened. You'll forget the face of the man who kidnapped you. His smile was cold. I don't think so. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. So what happens now? You kill me because your men are incompetent? My men followed orders perfectly. They grabbed a woman named Sophia, leaving the Columbia Library at exactly the time Bellini's daughter leaves every Tuesday. He stood, returning to his desk. The mistake was mine. I should have provided a photograph. Great. So you're going to kill me because you didn't give them a picture? I haven't decided what I'm going to do with you yet. He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, the amber liquid catching the light. You're a complication I didn't anticipate, but you're also an opportunity. Opportunity for what? He took a sip, considering me over the rim of his glass. Bellini still has my money. And now I have something he doesn't know I have. A young woman, held against her will, in a location he'll never find. If I let him think I have his daughter, he'll still give me what I want. You want me to pretend to be her? I don't even know what she looks like. She looks enough like you. Dark hair, similar build, same age. In a photograph, with poor lighting, Bellini won't know the difference until it's too late. He set down his glass. You'll cooperate. Let my men take photos to send to Bellini, and when he returns what he stole, you'll be released. Simple. And if he doesn't return it? Or if he figures out I'm not his daughter? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. He pulled out his phone again, tapping a message. In the meantime, you'll stay here. Under guard. Any attempt to escape will be dealt with harshly. This is insane. You can't just keep me prisoner. I can, and I am. He looked up from his phone. You should have been more careful walking alone at night. Should have been more aware of your surroundings. Should have been anything except an easy target who shares a name with someone on my radar. So this is my fault? Anger cut through my fear. I'm being punished because I have a common name and your men can't tell two people apart? You're being kept alive, which is more than many people in your position receive. His expression hardened. Be grateful for that, Miss Blake, and pray that Bellini values his actual daughter enough to pay for what he thinks is her. A knock on the door interrupted whatever I might have said next. A man entered without waiting for permission. Tall, broad, with a scar running down his left cheek and the same dangerous aura as the man behind the desk. Boss, he said in Italian, which I understood just well enough to follow. We have Bellini's location. Do you want me to proceed with the exchange demand? Yes, send the photo first. Make sure it's convincing. The boss, I still didn't know his name, gestured to me. Take her to the guest room. Make sure she's comfortable but secured. I don't want any escape attempts. Wait, I said as the scarred man moved toward me. I don't even know your name. If I'm going to be your prisoner, shouldn't I know who's holding me captive? He considered this, then smiled slightly. You can call me Dante. And you're not a prisoner, Miss Blake. You're a guest. An involuntary, non-optional guest, but a guest nonetheless. That's just kidnapping with better semantics. Perhaps. He nodded to the scarred man. Go, Marco. Make sure she has everything she needs. We want her healthy and presentable for photographs. Marco grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. I tried to resist, but his grip was iron. As he dragged me into the hallway, I looked back at Dante, finding him watching me with an expression I couldn't read. This is illegal, I shouted. Kidnapping, false imprisonment, yes, Dante agreed calmly. Add it to the list of my crimes. I'm sure the authorities will be very interested, if they ever find out. The threat was clear. If I talked, if I went to police after this was over, there would be consequences. Permanent ones. Marco pulled me down a corridor to a bedroom that was surprisingly nice. Queen bed with expensive linens, attached bathroom, even a TV. But the barred windows and heavy lock on the outside of the door made it clear this was a prison, no matter how comfortable. Don't try anything stupid, Marco said in accented English. Cameras everywhere. Guards outside. You run, we find you. Understand? I nodded, too exhausted and terrified to argue. Good. He left, the lock clicking with finality. I sank onto the bed, finally allowing the tears to fall. I was kidnapped, held by what was clearly organized crime, all because I shared a name with some mobster's daughter. My phone was gone, so no one could track me. My roommate Emma would notice I hadn't come home, but she'd probably just assume I'd stayed late at the library or crashed at another friend's place. It might be days before anyone realized I was missing. And by then, anything could have happened. I curled up on the bed, pulling a pillow close, trying not to think about all the ways this could end badly, trying not to think about Dante's dark eyes, assessing me like I was a problem to be solved or eliminated, trying not to think about the fact that my life now depended on whether some criminal I'd never met cared enough about his daughter to pay for her return. A daughter who wasn't even me. I didn't sleep. How could I? Knowing armed guards stood outside my door, knowing cameras watched my every move, knowing a dangerous man held my life in his hands. Instead, I spent the night cataloging every detail of the room, looking for weaknesses, escape routes, anything that might help me survive this nightmare. The windows were reinforced, probably bulletproof. The door was solid wood with a lock that required a key from the outside. Even the bathroom had no windows, just a small ventilation grate too narrow for anyone to fit through. I was trapped. Completely. Around dawn, I heard footsteps in the hallway. The lock clicked, and a woman entered carrying a tray of food. She was older, maybe 50, with steel gray hair pulled into a bun and kind eyes that seemed out of place in this situation. Breakfast, she said in lightly accented English, setting the tray on the dresser. You should eat. Keep your strength up. Are you a prisoner too? I asked. No. I work for Mr. Russo. Have for 20 years. She smoothed the bedspread unnecessarily. My name is Maria. If you need anything, you ask me. I need to go home. Can you help with that? Her expression saddened. I cannot. I'm sorry. She moved toward the door, then paused. But I can tell you this. Mr. Russo is not a cruel man. If you cooperate, if you don't cause trouble, you'll be treated well. It's the ones who fight who suffer. I'm being held against my will. How am I supposed to not fight? By being smart, by staying alive. She left before I could ask more questions, the lock clicking behind her. I stared at the breakfast. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee that smelled divine. My stomach growled despite my fear, and I realized I hadn't eaten since yesterday lunch. Reluctantly, I picked at the food, knowing Maria was right. I needed strength if I was going to survive this. An hour later, Marco returned with clothes. Put these on. Boss wants photos. The clothes were expensive, a dress similar to what a wealthy man's daughter might wear, designer shoes, even jewelry. They wanted me to look the part of Sofia Bellini, to convince her father that I was really her. And if I refuse, then we take photos of you as you are. But you look tired, scared, like you've been crying all night. That might make Bellini suspicious that something's wrong. You want him suspicious? Marco's expression was flat. Your choice. He was right. If Bellini thought something was wrong, if he suspected this wasn't really his daughter, he might not pay. And if he didn't pay, I was useless to Dante. Useless meant dead. "I'll change," I said quietly. After Marco left, I put on the dress with shaking hands. It fit perfectly. They'd clearly taken my measurements while I was unconscious. The thought made my skin crawl. When Marco returned, he led me back to Dante's office. The man himself stood by the window, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He glanced at me, his dark eyes traveling over the dress with an assessment that felt too intimate. He ended his call. "Good, you clean up well." "So glad I meet your standards," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Attitude won't help you. Miss Blake." He gestured to a chair positioned before a plain backdrop. "Sit. Look scared but not terrified. Disheveled but not abused. We want Bellini to believe you're being held but not harmed." Yet, I sat, my hands gripping the armrests. A man I hadn't seen before appeared with a professional camera. He took dozens of photos from various angles while Dante directed, telling me to look down, look up, turn my head, show emotion but not too much. It felt like the world's most disturbing photo shoot. Finally, Dante seemed satisfied. "Enough. Marco, send them to Bellini with our demands. Tell him he has 24 hours to return what he stole, or his daughter suffers consequences." "I'm not his daughter," I reminded him. "He doesn't know that." Dante moved closer, studying me with that intense gaze. "You know, you really do look like her. Similar features, same coloring. If I hadn't checked your ID after my men brought you in, I might not have noticed the switch." Lucky me. More lucky than you realize. If you'd been the real Sofia Bellini, I'd have no reason to keep you comfortable. I'd be using more persuasive methods to make her father pay. His expression darkened. "But you're an innocent caught in the middle. That affords you certain protections. How generous. You're only psychologically torturing me instead of physically." Something flashed in his eyes. Anger? Respect? "You have fire. I like that. Better than tears and begging? Give me time. I might get there yet." He smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. "I hope not. I find your spirit entertaining." Before I could respond, his phone rang. He checked the screen, his expression hardening. "Take her back to her room. I need to handle this." Marco escorted me back to my luxurious prison. This time, Maria was waiting with lunch and a stack of books. "I thought you might want something to read," she said, setting them on the bedside table. "Mr. Russo said you're studying art history. These are from his personal library." I looked at the titles. Books on Renaissance painting, Baroque architecture, Italian masters. Exactly what I'd been researching for my thesis. He checked what I was studying. "Mr. Russo is thorough. He learns everything about people in his life, even temporary guests." Maria's smile was gentle. "He's not a monster, whatever you might think. He's a man doing what he believes necessary to protect what's his. By kidnapping innocent people. By dealing with those who steal from him. You're here by accident, but you're also safe here. Safer than you'd be if you'd encountered some of Mr. Russo's less principled associates." She moved toward the door. "Read, rest. Don't think too much about what might happen. It will drive you mad." After she left, I picked up one of the books, Caravaggio's use of light and shadow. I'd been researching him for months, had pages of notes about his technique, his influence on Baroque painting. I opened the book, trying to lose myself in familiar academic territory. It almost worked, pulling me into analysis of brushwork and composition, making me forget for brief moments that I was a prisoner. Then I'd remember where I was, who held me, and the words would blur as panic threatened to overwhelm me. 3 days passed in this strange limbo. Maria brought meals, always with kind words and careful concern. Marco checked on me twice daily, his presence intimidating but not overtly threatening. And Dante, I didn't see him at all after that photo session. But I felt his presence in every detail. The books selected specifically for my interests. The food catered to preferences I didn't remember mentioning. Even the temperature of the room adjusted to perfect comfort. He was watching, monitoring, learning me the way he apparently learned everyone in his orbit. On the 4th day, everything changed. I was reading when my door opened without the usual knock. Dante stood there, his expression thunderous, his entire body radiating barely controlled rage. "Get up. Now. What's wrong?" "Your friend Emma, the one you live with. Tell me about her." My blood ran cold. "What about her?" "What did you do?" "I did nothing. But she's been asking questions, filing missing person reports, contacting everyone you know. She even went to the police." He pulled out his phone, showing me a news article. "Columbia student missing for 4 days. Police investigating." My photo stared back at me from the screen. "She's looking for me," I whispered. "Of course she is. I disappeared. And now you're a police matter, which makes you a liability." He pocketed the phone. Bellini received the photos. He knows someone has his daughter, or thinks they do. He's agreed to return what he stole. The exchange is set for tomorrow. "So you'll let me go? After the exchange?" That was the plan. His jaw tightened. "But now police are involved. If you go home, if you talk, if you give them any information about me or my organization, there will be consequences." "I won't talk." "I swear, everyone says that, until federal agents offer immunity, witness protection, a way out." He moved closer, and I pressed back against the wall. "I need insurance. Something that ensures your silence after you're released." "What kind of insurance?" "That depends on you, Miss Blake. How much do you value your friend Emma's safety?" "Your own family's safety?" His dark eyes held mine. "Because if you talk, if you become a problem, I'll solve that problem. And solutions are rarely pleasant for everyone involved." The threat was crystal clear. Stay silent or the people I loved would pay the price. "I'll keep quiet," I managed. "Whatever you need, I'll do it. Just don't hurt anyone." He studied me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. "You really are innocent, aren't you? Caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, willing to sacrifice your own freedom to protect others. Isn't that what anyone would do?" "No. Most people are selfish when survival is at stake." He reached out, his hand cupping my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. The touch was surprisingly gentle despite his anger. "But you're different. I can see it in your eyes. You'd take the punishment yourself if it meant sparing others." "Please," I whispered. "Let me go. I won't say anything. I'll disappear if I have to. Just let me go." "I can't. Not yet." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, the gesture almost tender. "The exchange is tomorrow. After that, I'll decide what to do with you. Until then, you stay here, under my protection." "Your protection? You kidnapped me!" "And in doing so, I've kept you safer than you realize." He released my face, stepping back. "There are people in my world who would do far worse than hold you in a comfortable room with good food and books. Be grateful you ended up with me instead of them." He left, the lock clicking, leaving me shaking with a confusing mix of fear and something else I didn't want to examine. Because for just a moment, when his hand had touched my face, when his dark eyes had held mine with that intensity, I hadn't felt afraid. I'd felt something far more dangerous. The day of the exchange, tension filled the entire house like electricity before a storm. Guards moved with heightened alertness, weapons visible where they'd been concealed before. Maria brought breakfast but barely spoke, her usual kindness overshadowed by worry. "What happens today?" I asked as she set down the tray. "Mr. Russo meets with Bellini. Trades the girl for what was stolen." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Then things go back to normal." "And me? What happens to me?" "I don't know, child. That's for Mr. Russo to decide." She finally looked at me, sympathy evident. "But I'll pray for you. Pray that he sees your innocence and shows mercy." After she left, I couldn't eat. My stomach churned with anxiety about what came next. Would Dante really let me go? Or would I become a permanent loose end that needed to be tied up? Around noon, Marco appeared. "Boss wants to see you. Now." I followed him to Dante's office, finding him dressed differently than before. Tactical gear instead of expensive suits, weapons visible at his hip and ankle. He looked every inch the dangerous criminal, no polish to hide the violence beneath. "Sit," he commanded, not looking up from the tablet he was studying. "We need to discuss what happens after today." "You mean after you trick Bellini into thinking he's getting his daughter back?" "Yes." He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Bellini will bring what he stole. My men will verify it's all there. Then we'll release someone he believes is his daughter. But it won't be his daughter. It'll be me. No. Dante set down the tablet. It'll be his actual daughter. My men found her 2 days ago. She's been here, in a different part of the house since yesterday. I stared at him, processing this. You have the real Sofia Bellini? Yes, which means you're no longer necessary for the exchange. He leaned back in his chair, watching me carefully. Which creates a problem. What to do with you now? Let me go. You said if I cooperated, I said I'd decide. And I have. He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace. You're staying here. What? No, you can't keep me prisoner forever. Not as a prisoner, as... He paused, seeming to search for the right word. As an employee, with very specific job duties. I'm not working for you. I'm not becoming part of your criminal organization. You already are part of it, whether you like it or not. You've been here for days. You've seen my face, my home, my operations. You know things that could damage me if shared with authorities. He was close now, looking down at me with those intense dark eyes. So you have 2 choices. Stay here under my control, where I know you can't betray me. Or leave and put everyone you love at risk. That's not a choice. That's coercion. It's reality. And the sooner you accept it, the easier your life will be. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo. This is the apartment I've prepared for you. In Manhattan, near Columbia. You'll continue your studies, maintain your normal life, but you'll also work for me. I looked at the photo. A beautiful apartment, far nicer than my current studio. Doing what? Research. Documentation. I have various business interests that require academic analysis. Historical research, verification of art and antiquities. He swiped to another photo. This one showing an office filled with books and computer equipment. Your art history expertise is valuable. You'll use it for me. And if I refuse, then Emma Chen, your roommate, will have a very unfortunate accident. Perhaps her car brakes fail. Perhaps she's mugged in a bad neighborhood. Accidents happen, Miss Blake, especially to people connected to those who displease me. Rage and helplessness warred within me. He had me trapped, and he knew it. I could refuse, try to run, but he'd make the people I loved pay the price. How long? I asked through gritted teeth. Until I'm satisfied you're no longer a threat. Could be 6 months. Could be years. He tucked away his phone. But you'll be well compensated. Apartment, rent paid, generous salary, access to resources most graduate students would kill for. All you have to do is work for me and keep your mouth shut. You mean, let you own me, if you want to frame it that way. He didn't deny it. But ownership goes both ways, Miss Blake. You work for me, you're under my protection. Anyone who threatens you threatens me. That's not nothing in my world. Before I could respond, Marco burst in without knocking. Boss, we have a problem. Bellini brought double the men we expected. This smells like a setup. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, the businessman vanishing as the criminal emerged. How many? At least 20. Armed. Positioned around the exchange point. Marco's hand rested on his weapon. Do we abort? No, we proceed. But carefully. Dante turned to me. Go back to your room. Stay there until someone comes for you. Don't open the door for anyone except Maria or Marco, understand? What's happening? Now, Sophia? The use of my first name, sharp and commanding, made me move without thinking. Marco escorted me back quickly, his tension palpable. As he locked me in, I heard shouting in Italian, men running, the unmistakable sound of weapons being loaded. Something had gone wrong with the exchange. I pressed my ear to the door, trying to hear what was happening, but the shouting faded as people moved away from my wing of the house. Then silence, worse than the chaos because I couldn't know what it meant. Minutes crawled by. I paced the room, my imagination running wild with possibilities. Was Dante hurt? Dead? Were his men fighting Bellini's forces outside? Would whoever won come for me next? An hour passed. Then 2, no one came. No one brought food or water. The house was eerily quiet, as if everyone had disappeared. Finally, around sunset, I heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, multiple people. I backed away from the door, my heart racing. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Marco stood there, blood on his shirt, his face grim. Behind him, 2 other men I'd never seen, also bloodied and armed. Come with us, Marco said. Quickly. What happened? Where's Dante? No time, move. He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. We ran through the house, which showed signs of violence. Bullet holes in walls, broken furniture, blood on expensive floors. Outside, night had fallen, and I could see bodies lying motionless in the driveway. A car waited, engine running. Marco shoved me into the back seat, climbing in beside me. Drive fast. As we peeled away from the house, I finally found my voice. Someone tell me what's happening! Bellini ambushed the exchange, Marco said, pressing a cloth to a bleeding wound on his arm. He never intended to trade. He wanted to kill Mr. Russo, take back his daughter, and eliminate everyone who'd seen her. Is Dante alive? Marco's expression was unreadable. He was alive when he told me to get you to safety. Beyond that, I don't know. Why would he tell you to save me? I'm nobody to him. You're his responsibility now. He doesn't abandon his responsibilities. Marco looked at me directly. He also said if anything happened to him, to take you to his sister in Chicago. She'll know what to do. His sister? I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You just need to survive. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. We have a long drive ahead. Try to rest. But I couldn't rest. I stared out the window as we left whatever city we'd been in, heading onto highways I didn't recognize. The man who'd kidnapped me might be dead, and somehow, impossibly, I felt something twist in my chest at the thought. Not relief, not joy, but something closer to worry. Concern for a dangerous criminal who'd threatened people I loved, who'd held me prisoner, who'd planned to use me as his personal researcher against my will. I was losing my mind. Stockholm Syndrome, maybe, or just exhaustion and shock from days of captivity. We drove through the night, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks. Marco remained vigilant, checking his phone constantly, looking for messages that never came. The other men spoke in Italian too fast for me to follow, but their tension was evident. By dawn, we reached Chicago, pulling up to a high-rise building in an expensive neighborhood. Marco led me to the penthouse, where a woman answered before he could knock. She looked like Dante, same dark hair and eyes, same sharp features. But where he radiated danger, she projected controlled authority. She wore a business suit and carried herself like someone used to command. You must be Sofia, she said, her accent softer than Dante's. I'm Isabella Russo, my brother's sister. Is he alive? The words burst out before I could stop them. Something shifted in her expression. Yes, injured, but alive. He's in hiding until we know the full extent of Bellini's betrayal. She gestured us inside. Come, we need to talk about your situation. The penthouse was stunning. Art on every wall, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that probably cost more than my education. Isabella led me to a sitting area while Marco disappeared with the other men. My brother told me about you, Isabella said, pouring coffee from a silver service. The wrong girl, caught in the middle of a territorial dispute. He was going to keep me prisoner. Make me work for him. Yes, Dante has a tendency to solve problems through control. She smiled slightly. But he also protects what's his, and he's decided you're under his protection now. I don't want his protection. I want to go home. Home to what? Police investigations? Media attention? Bellini's men looking for witnesses? Isabella shook her head. The moment you disappeared, you became part of this world. There's no going back to normal, Sophia. Only forward. So I'm still a prisoner. Just with a different warden? No. You're someone Dante has claimed responsibility for. That means I'm responsible for you until he recovers. She sipped her coffee. Which means we need to establish new terms. Terms that work for both of us. What kind of terms? You want your freedom. Your life back. I want to ensure you won't endanger my brother or our family. She set down her cup. So here's my offer. You work for me instead of Dante. Legitimate work, legal work, doing art authentication and historical research for my gallery. Proper salary, proper contract, proper employment. In exchange, you agree to confidentiality about what you've seen and experienced. And if I refuse, then you remain under house arrest until Dante decides you're safe to release. Which could be months, years, or never. Her expression was sympathetic but firm. I'm offering you the better option, Sophia. Take it. I looked out the windows at Chicago's skyline, at a city I'd never been to, at a life I'd never chosen. Everything about this was wrong, but it was also somehow better than the alternatives. I'll need to contact Emma. Let her know I'm alive. Carefully controlled contact, yes. We'll craft a story. You met someone, eloped spontaneously, are taking time off from school. It'll satisfy immediate concerns while buying us time to figure out a more permanent solution. You've thought of everything. That's what I do. My brother handles the violent side of our business. I handle the consequences. She stood, extending her hand. Do we have an agreement? I thought about Dante, injured and hiding somewhere. I thought about the violence I'd witnessed, the bodies in the driveway, the blood on Marco's shirt. I thought about how easily I could have been one of those bodies if different choices had been made. Yes, I said, shaking her hand. We have an agreement, Isabella smiled. Good. Welcome to the Russo family, Sophia. Try not to regret it too much, but I already did, and I suspected that regret would only grow deeper as time went on. The gallery was beautiful. Soaring ceilings, perfect lighting, carefully curated pieces that represented centuries of artistic achievement. Isabella's operation was entirely legitimate, a sharp contrast to her brother's world of violence and crime. I'd been working there for 3 weeks, authenticating pieces, researching provenance, writing catalog descriptions. It was exactly what I'd dreamed of doing with my degree, just under circumstances I'd never imagined. Emma believed my carefully constructed lie. I'd met someone at a conference, fallen hard, and taken an impulsive leave from school to explore the relationship. She was hurt I hadn't told her sooner, but ultimately supportive, sending texts about being happy and staying safe. The guilt of lying to her ate at me daily. My new apartment was in a luxury building Isabella owned, the rent mysteriously covered as part of my employment package. I had a doorman, secure parking, and neighbors who minded their own business. It felt like a gilded cage, beautiful but confining. I hadn't heard from Dante since that night. Isabella mentioned him occasionally. He was recovering, handling business from an undisclosed location, dealing with the fallout from Bellini's betrayal. But she never offered to connect us, and I never asked, until he showed up at the gallery on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the back room, examining a painting that claimed to be a minor Caravaggio, when I felt his presence before I saw him. That same electric awareness I'd experienced in captivity, as if my body recognized his proximity on some primal level. I turned, finding him in the doorway, watching me with those intense dark eyes. He looked different. Leaner, harder, with healing scars visible on his face and neck. He wore all black as before, but moved with a slight favor to his left side, suggesting injuries not fully healed. Miss Blake. His voice was exactly as I remembered. Working hard, I see. Mr. Russo. I kept my tone professional, trying to ignore how my heart had started racing. I didn't know you were coming. Isabella didn't mention it? He moved into the room, closing the door behind him. I wanted to see how you were settling in, how you were adapting. I'm fine. Your sister has been very accommodating. I turned back to the painting, using it as a shield. The work is interesting, challenging, exactly what I studied for, but not freely. Chosen. No. But few things in my life have been freely chosen since your men grabbed me off the street. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. He was silent for a moment. Then, I'm sorry, I spun to face him. What? I'm sorry. For the kidnapping, for the threats, for disrupting your life. He moved closer. You were innocent. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong name. You didn't deserve what happened. Is this supposed to make me feel better? An apology from the man who held me prisoner? No, it's supposed to acknowledge the truth. He stopped a few feet away. I could make excuses, say it was business, say I had no choice, say I was protecting my interests. But the reality is I took your freedom because it was convenient for me. That was wrong. I didn't know what to say. I'd expected many things from Dante Russo, but genuine remorse wasn't one of them. Why are you really here? I asked. Because I wanted to see you. To make sure you were all right. His expression was unreadable. And because I have a proposition. Another one? What now? Do I become your accountant? Your lawyer? Actually, I want to release you from our agreement. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. What? The work arrangement with Isabella. The enforced employment, the restricted freedom. I'm ending it. He pulled out papers from his jacket. This is a termination of the contract Isabella made you sign. You're free to go. Back to Colombia. Back to your life. Back to whatever you choose. I stared at the papers, not touching them. Why? What changed? I almost died 3 weeks ago. Bellini's ambush came close to succeeding. He set the papers on the table beside the painting. When you think you're going to die, you evaluate your choices. The things you've done, the people you've hurt. I decided I didn't want your suffering on my conscience. So this is about easing your guilt? Partly. Also about doing the right thing for once. He moved toward the door. You're free, Sophia. No more obligations to me or my family. No more threats against your loved ones, just free. Wait. I grabbed his arm as he reached for the handle. What about Bellini? What about the danger you said I'd be in? Bellini is dead. I handled him personally after I recovered enough to move. His voice was flat. His entire operation is dismantled. There's no one left to threaten you. And your need for me to keep quiet? For insurance against me talking? I'm trusting you won't. That the woman I got to know during those few days, the one who read Caravaggio in captivity, who stood up to me despite her fear, who chose to protect others over herself, that woman won't betray me. He looked down at my hand on his arm. Was I wrong to trust that? I released him, stepping back. No, I won't talk. Not to protect you, but to protect myself. To avoid being dragged deeper into your world. That's fair. He opened the door, then paused. For what it's worth, if circumstances had been different, if we'd met any other way, I think I would have liked knowing you properly. Without the kidnapping and threats, we'll never know, will we? No, I suppose we won't. He left, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. I stood alone in the room, staring at the termination papers, trying to process what had just happened. I was free, actually genuinely free. I could go back to school, back to my life, pretend none of this had ever happened. So why did it feel like loss instead of relief? I told Isabella that evening that I was leaving, returning to New York, going back to Colombia. She accepted it with grace, even offered to write a recommendation letter for my thesis committee. You were good at this work, she said. If you ever want to come back, legitimately, the door is open. Why are you being so kind? Your brother kidnapped me, because you never deserved what happened to you, and because I've seen how Dante looks at you. She smiled slightly. My brother has many faults, but he's never apologized to anyone before. You're the first. That means something. It means he feels guilty. It means you affected him, made him question his choices. That's not nothing, Sophia. I didn't know what to say to that, so I simply thanked her and left. Back in New York, I moved into a new apartment. My choice this time, modest but mine. I re-enrolled in classes, dove back into my thesis research, tried to reconstruct the life that had been interrupted. Emma was thrilled I was back, though confused about why the relationship had ended so suddenly. I made up a story about incompatibility, about realizing I'd rushed into things. She accepted it, and slowly our friendship returned to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. I'd seen too much, experienced too much. The academic discussions in my seminars felt trivial compared to being held at gunpoint. My classmates' concerns about grades and internships seemed childish compared to negotiating with a crime boss for my freedom. I'd been changed by my time in that world, and I couldn't undo it. 3 months after returning, I was working late in the library when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. There's a painting for sale at Christie's next month. Attributed to Artemisia Gentileschi. I think it's a forgery. Interested in verifying? I stared at the message, my heart racing. I knew who'd sent it even without a name. The subject matter, the phrasing, the assumption I'd be interested. It could only be Dante. I shouldn't respond. Should block the number, delete the message, maintain the distance I'd worked so hard to create. Instead, I typed, "Why are you asking me?" The response came quickly. Because you're brilliant at this work, and because I miss talking to someone who isn't afraid to challenge me. I was terrified of you. You were terrified of the situation. But you still challenged me, still spoke your mind, still refused to be broken. I admired that. I shouldn't engage. This was dangerous. He was dangerous. But I typed anyway. Send me the details. I'll take a look. Thank you. Compensation will be deposited to your account. I don't want your money. Then do it because you love art. Because you can't resist a good mystery. Because you're curious whether I'm right. A pause, then. And maybe because you miss it a little too. The intensity, the stakes that matter. He was right, and I hated that he was right. My normal life felt pale compared to those heightened days of danger and challenge. Just send the information, I typed. The painting arrived from my examination 2 weeks later, delivered by a Christie's courier with impeccable credentials and no idea who'd really commissioned the authentication. It took me 3 days of careful analysis, but I confirmed Dante's suspicion. It was a skilled forgery, probably from the 1920s. I documented my findings meticulously, then sent the report to the number he'd texted from. His response: "Knew I could count on you. Another job next month if you're interested." I should have said no, should have maintained boundaries. But I said yes. Over the next 6 months, it became a pattern. Dante would send me authentication requests, always through anonymous channels, always well compensated despite my protests. I'd examine pieces, write reports, and never quite managed to cut off contact completely. We never met in person. Never spoke on the phone. Just texts about art, about technique, about the fascinating intersection of beauty and fraud. It felt safe. Distant. Like I could be involved without really being involved. Until the text came through on a Tuesday morning. "I need to see you." "In person. It's urgent." "No, we agreed. Sophia, please. It's about your safety. Someone knows about our arrangement." "Someone dangerous." Fear spiked through me. "Who?" "Meet me tonight. The Metropolitan Museum, Temple of Dender, 8 p.m. after closing. I'll explain everything." "How are you getting into the Met after hours?" "The same way I do everything else. Through connections and money. Please." I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. I stared at the message for long minutes, torn between self-preservation and the awful truth that part of me wanted to see him again, wanted to be in that space where life felt vivid and real instead of the muted existence I'd been living. "I'll be there," I typed. "Thank you. And Sophia, come alone. Trust no one else with this." That night, I entered the Met through a service entrance where a guard waited with my name on a list. He led me through empty halls, our footsteps echoing off marble floors, past masterpieces I'd studied for years but now barely noticed. The Temple of Dendur sat in its glass-walled room, ancient and imposing, illuminated by soft lighting that made it look even more otherworldly than usual. And standing before it, hands in his pockets, was Dante Russo. He looked better than the last time I'd seen him. Fully healed, his usual controlled power restored. He wore a dark suit that probably cost more than my semester's tuition, and his dark eyes found mine immediately. "You came," he said quietly. "You said it was urgent." "About my safety." I stopped a careful distance away. "What's going on?" I lied. At my expression, he raised a hand. "There's no immediate danger. No one threatening you. I lied because I needed to see you. And I knew you wouldn't come otherwise. You manipulated me. Again. Yes, I'm good at that." He moved closer. "But I'm trying to be better. Trying to make different choices. And I wanted to make this choice. To see you. To talk to you. To tell you the truth about why I keep sending you work. Because I'm good at authentication. Because I can't stop thinking about you." The confession hung between us, stark and vulnerable. For 6 months I've tried to move on, to forget the woman I kidnapped and held prisoner. But I can't. Every painting reminds me of finding you reading in that room. Every business deal reminds me of how you stood up to me. Every decision I make, I wonder what you'd think of it. Dante, I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to feel anything for you. I know you should hate me for what I did. He was close now, close enough to touch. But I'm done pretending I don't care. Done keeping distance when all I want is to be near you. This is insane. You kidnapped me. I know. You threatened people I love. I know. You're a criminal. You hurt people. You operate outside every moral boundary I have. I know all of it. His hand came up, hovering near my face, not quite touching. But you're here anyway. In an empty museum at night, meeting a man you claim to fear. Why is that, Sophia? Because you said I was in danger. Because you wanted to see me too, he interrupted. Because these past 6 months have felt as empty for you as they have for me. Because you're drawn to this, to me, despite every rational reason not to be. He was right. God help me, he was right. I'd been drawn to him since that first moment in his office, when his dark eyes had held mine with such intensity. I'd felt alive in his world in a way I'd never felt anywhere else. This can't work, I whispered. We can't work, I know, but I'm tired of doing what makes sense instead of what I want. His hand finally touched my face, cupping my cheek, his thumb brushing across my lips. I want you, Sophia. Have since the moment you refused to be broken. Tell me you don't feel the same and I'll walk away. I'll stop the work requests, stop the texts, stop everything. But if there's any part of you that wants this too, I should have said no. Should have walked away from the dangerous criminal who disrupted my life. Instead, I closed the distance between us and kissed him. The kiss was everything it shouldn't have been. Desperate. Intense. 6 months of denied attraction finally unleashed. Dante's hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer as if afraid I'd disappear. I gripped his jacket, losing myself in the heat and danger and absolute wrongness of kissing a man who'd held me captive. We broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed together, both of us shaking. We can't do this, I whispered, even as my hands refused to release him. We already are. His voice was rough, affected. Sophia, I know this is complicated. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I'm asking anyway. Give me a chance. Let me prove I can be more than the man who kidnapped you. How? By sending me illegal art to authenticate? By pulling me deeper into your world? By showing you all of it. The good and the bad. No more secrets, no more half-truths. He pulled back to look at me directly. I want to be honest with you. About my business, my life, my choices. And then you can decide if I'm worth the risk. You're asking me to date you, a crime boss. I'm asking you to give us a chance to see if this connection is real or just adrenaline and proximity. His thumb traced my jawline. I've never felt this way about anyone, Sophia. Never wanted someone to truly know me, all of me. But I want that with you. Every rational thought screamed that this was a terrible idea. But I'd spent 6 months being rational, being safe, and it had felt like slowly suffocating. 1 month, I said. You have 1 month to show me who you really are, all of it. Then I decide if this continues or ends. 1 month. He smiled, actually smiled, with genuine warmth. I can work with that. Over the next 4 weeks, Dante systematically dismantled every preconception I'd had about him. He showed me his legitimate businesses, restaurants, import companies, real estate holdings. He introduced me to his family, Isabella and their younger brother Marco, who I recognized as my former guard. You knew? I asked Marco, who grinned. From the start. Boss was different after you were here. Questioned things he never questioned before. Marco's expression turned serious. You're good for him. Make him think about consequences. Dante also showed me the darker side, though carefully. He explained his operations without graphic details, helped me understand the structure of his world. He was honest about the violence, the moral compromises, the things he'd done that kept him awake at night. I'm not asking you to approve, he said one evening, as we sat in his penthouse overlooking the city, just to understand the context. The choices I make, they're not made lightly. Do you ever regret it? This life? Every day, but I also don't know how to be anything else. He took my hand. Except when I'm with you. Then I remember there might be other possibilities. We fell into a rhythm. Dinners at quiet restaurants, walks through the city, nights spent talking about everything and nothing. He'd show up at my apartment with coffee and pastries, having memorized my schedule. I'd text him photos of paintings I was studying, and he'd send back insightful observations that showed his educated eye. It felt normal. Except for the armed guards that followed us discreetly. Except for the phone calls he'd take in Italian, his voice hard and commanding. Except for the nights he'd disappear to handle business and return with shadows in his eyes. 3 weeks into our month, reality crashed back in. I was leaving class when a man approached me on campus. Well-dressed, professional-looking, but something about him set off alarm bells. Sophia Blake? He showed a badge. FBI, I need to ask you some questions about Dante Russo. My blood ran cold. I don't know anyone by that name. Really? Because we have surveillance footage of you entering his building multiple times over the past weeks. We also have records of money transfers from his accounts to yours. His smile was predatory. You're either working for him or involved with him. Either way, you're our way in. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest. Yet. But we'd like you to come in voluntarily. Answer some questions. Unless you prefer we make this official? He handed me a card. Think about it. We'll be in touch. He walked away, leaving me shaking on the sidewalk. I called Dante immediately. We need to talk. Now. 30 minutes later, I was in his penthouse, pacing while he listened to my account of the FBI encounter with an expression that grew darker by the second. They're building a case, he said finally. Have been for months. I knew it was coming eventually. You knew? And you didn't warn me? I didn't want to scare you. Didn't want to believe they'd try to use you against me. His hands curled into fists. This is exactly what I wanted to avoid. You being dragged into my legal troubles. Well, it's too late for that now. The FBI thinks I'm involved. They'll investigate me, my finances, my entire life. I stopped, realization hitting. The authentication work, the money you sent, that's evidence of me working for you. It's evidence of legitimate consulting fees for legitimate work. You did nothing illegal, except knowingly associate with a criminal under federal investigation. You didn't know I was under investigation. He stood, moving to me. Sophia, listen. I have lawyers who handle these situations. They'll protect you. Ensure you're not charged with anything. I don't want your lawyers. I trailed off, not sure what I wanted. This is too much, Dante. The FBI, the legal troubles, the constant danger. I can't. You're leaving. His voice was flat. Our month isn't even up and you're already running. I'm not running. I'm being realistic. This isn't sustainable. Us being together, it puts me at risk I never signed up for. You signed up for it when you kissed me in that museum, when you agreed to give us a chance. He gripped my shoulders. Not hard, but firm. I told you it would be complicated. You said you could handle it. I thought I could, but that was before the FBI. Before the reality of what being with you actually means. Tears burned behind my eyes. Dante, I care about you, but I can't go to prison because you've made powerful enemies. You won't go to prison. I'll make sure of it. How? By intimidating federal agents? By making them disappear? I pulled away from him. That's your solution to everything. Control through force. But you can't control this. You can't control the justice system. Watch me. His expression hardened. Those agents who approached you, they'll be reassigned by tomorrow. The investigation will hit roadblocks. Evidence will be deemed inadmissible. I have resources you can't imagine, Sophia. I'll protect you whether you want me to or not. Don't you see? That's the problem. You think you can fix everything with power and money and threats. But some things can't be fixed that way. Some consequences can't be avoided. Then what do you suggest? I turn myself in? Plead guilty to every crime they suspect me of? Abandon my family and my business to make you feel safer? I don't know. I just know I can't keep living like this. Constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering when the other shoe will drop. We stood in tense silence, the space between us feeling like a chasm. Finally, Dante spoke quietly. I'm sorry for putting you in this position, for being selfish enough to think I could have something normal when nothing about my life is normal. He moved to his desk, pulling out an envelope. Here, everything you'd need to disappear if you wanted. New identity, money, contacts. You could start over somewhere I'd never find you. You're offering to help me run from you? I'm offering you the choice I never gave you before. Freedom. Real freedom. His dark eyes held mine. Take it and go, or stay and accept that being with me means accepting all of this. The danger, the complications, the constant threat of legal consequences. Your choice, Sophia, but this time, actually yours. I stared at the envelope, at the escape route he was providing. I could take it, disappear, rebuild my life far from him and his dangerous world, or I could stay. The FBI agent, I said slowly. What was his name? Special Agent Morrison. Why? Because I'm going to call him. I'm going to cooperate with his investigation. Dante's expression went cold. You're going to testify against me. No, I'm going to tell him the truth, that you hired me for legitimate consulting work, that I know nothing about your illegal activities, and that harassing me won't get him the evidence he needs. I met his gaze. But I'm doing it legally, through a lawyer, with everything documented. No intimidation, no making agents disappear, no using your power to make problems vanish. That's not how my world works. Then maybe it's time your world learned a different way. I moved closer to him. Dante, you said you wanted to be different with me, to make better choices. This is what that looks like. Handling legal problems legally, even if it's harder, even if it's scarier. And if they still try to charge you, then we deal with it, together, through the system, not around it. I took his hands. I'm not running, but I'm also not letting you turn me into someone who solves problems your way. We do this right, or we don't do this at all. He searched my face, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he nodded. Okay, we'll try it your way. But if they threaten you, if they try to coerce you into anything, then we'll handle it. Legally. I squeezed his hands. Trust me on this. I trust you. It's the system I don't trust. But he pulled out his phone. I'll call my lawyer. He'll coordinate with whoever you choose. We'll do this properly. Thank you. He pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me in a hug that felt like equal parts protection and desperation. Don't make me regret this. Don't let them use you to destroy everything I've built. I won't betray you. But I also won't let you destroy yourself trying to protect me. I looked up at him. We figure this out together. As partners, partners. He smiled slightly. I like the sound of that. The next week was intense. Lawyers, meetings, carefully crafted statements to the FBI that gave them nothing usable while establishing my innocence. Agent Morrison was frustrated, but couldn't find grounds to charge me with anything. Through it all, Dante stayed close. Supporting but not controlling, trusting me to handle things my way, even when it clearly went against his instincts. We emerged from it changed. The investigation wasn't dropped, but I was officially cleared as an avenue of approach. And somehow, we were stronger for having faced it together without Dante resorting to his usual methods. So, he said one evening as we watched the sunset from his penthouse, our month is up. What's your decision? I thought about everything. The kidnapping, the fear, the FBI, the constant complications. I thought about the man who'd apologized, who'd trusted me, who'd tried to change his methods to honor my boundaries. I'm staying, I said, but we need new terms, such as, no more secrets. You tell me when legal troubles are coming. I get veto power on how we handle problems, and we both work on building something legitimate together, something that moves you away from the criminal side. That's a lot to ask. So is asking me to build a life with someone who could be indicted any moment. I turned to face him. I'm all in, Dante, but only if you're all in too. Not just with me, but with actually changing. He was quiet for a long moment, then pulled me close. All in. Even the terrifying parts where I don't know what I'm doing. Especially those parts. 2 years later, I stood in the gallery Isabella and I had opened together. A legitimate business. No criminal connections. Just beautiful art and honest work. The space was packed for our opening exhibition. Renaissance works on loan from private collections. Each piece authenticated and documented with meticulous care. Dante stood beside me, his hand resting on the small of my back, watching the crowd with the satisfaction of someone who'd helped build something good. He looked different now. Still dangerous, still commanding, but softer somehow. The sharp edges worn down by 2 years of choosing different paths. You did it, he murmured. This is incredible. We did it, I corrected. Your connections got half these loans. Your eye helped select the pieces, but your expertise made it legitimate, made people trust us. He squeezed my waist gently. I'm proud of you. The past 2 years had been complicated. Dante had slowly, carefully extracted himself from the most dangerous parts of his business. It wasn't easy. Men like him didn't just retire. But he'd transferred operations to trusted associates, closed down the illegal ventures, focused on the legitimate companies. There were setbacks. Old enemies who tested whether he'd really gone soft. Legal troubles that flared up periodically. The FBI investigation that had continued, though they'd never found enough evidence to indict. Through it all, we'd faced it together. Sometimes my way, through lawyers and legal channels. Sometimes his way, through connections and strategic pressure. Always as partners, Miss Blake. A reporter approached with a camera crew. Can we get a statement about the exhibition? I still used my maiden name professionally, kept that separation between my work and Dante's reputation. It was one of our compromises. I gave the interview, discussing the pieces and their historical significance, while Dante faded into the background. Another compromise. He supported my career but didn't overshadow it with his notoriety. After the reporter left, Emma appeared, now my assistant director and fully aware of who Dante was and what he'd been. That went well, she said. We've already sold 3 pieces, and the Times critic looks impressed. You didn't have to be nervous about telling me, I'd told Emma 6 months ago when I'd finally explained everything. About Dante, about what happened. You were kidnapped. I should have pushed harder when you disappeared, You did everything you could. And honestly, I needed that time to figure out what I wanted, who I wanted to be. I'd squeezed her hand. I'm sorry I lied, but I'm not sorry about where I ended up. She'd struggled with it, understanding intellectually, but emotionally conflicted about me being with someone who'd held me captive. But she'd seen how we were together, how Dante had changed, and slowly she'd accepted it. Your parents are here, Emma said now, nodding toward the entrance. I tensed. Mom and Dad hadn't met Dante yet. They knew about him, knew he was in business, knew we were serious. But they didn't know the whole story. That was a revelation I wasn't ready for. They're early, I muttered. Want me to run interference? No, it's time. I turned to Dante. Ready to meet my parents? As ready as I'll ever be. He straightened his tie, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. What if they hate me? They probably will, initially. Overprotective parents meeting the older boyfriend. I took his hand, but they'll come around. Probably. Mom and Dad made their way through the crowd, Mom elegant in her gallery-appropriate outfit, Dad looking uncomfortable in a suit. When they reached us, I made introductions. Mom, Dad, this is Dante Russo. Dante, my parents, Robert and Linda Blake. Handshakes were exchanged, pleasantries offered. Dad studied Dante with the assessing gaze of someone who'd spent years evaluating dental patients and saw through surface charm. Mom was warmer but watchful. So you're the one who stole our daughter away to Chicago, Mom said. Actually, ma'am, I think your daughter stole herself away. I just provided the opportunity. Dante's smile was genuine. Sophia's brilliant at what she does. This gallery exists because of her expertise and vision. And your money, Dad added bluntly. Dad, I started. It's fine, Dante interrupted. You're right, Mr. Blake. I provided financial backing. But I've backed dozens of ventures over the years. This is the first one I'm truly proud of, because it's built on something real, something honest, something your daughter created. Dad's expression softened slightly. She tells us you've been very supportive of her career. I try to be. Though honestly, she doesn't need my support. She's more than capable on her own. Dante glanced at me with obvious affection. I'm just lucky she lets me be part of her success. He's being modest, I said. Dante's eye for art is exceptional. Half the pieces here are ones he identified and recommended. We talked for a few more minutes before my parents excused themselves to view the exhibition. After they left, Dante exhaled slowly. That was terrifying. You handled it well. Dad almost smiled at one point. Keyword, almost. He pulled me close. Do they know? About how we met? No, and they don't need to. That's our story, not theirs. It was one secret we'd kept. Emma knew. Isabella knew. But most people in our lives believed we'd met through the art world. It was easier than explaining the truth. The exhibition was a massive success. By the end of the night, we'd sold half the pieces and booked the calendar for the next 6 months. Isabella was thrilled, already planning our next show. This is what legitimate success looks like, she said, hugging me. You should be proud. I am. Though I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. She looked at Dante, who was talking with a collector. He's different with you, lighter. You're good for him. He's good for me too. in unexpected ways. After everyone left, Dante and I stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by centuries of art, both of us exhausted but happy. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. My heart stopped. "Dante, before you panic, it's not what you think. Open it." Inside was a key on a simple chain. A key? To the safe in my office, where I keep documents, records, everything about my business operations, past and present. He took my hand. "I'm giving you complete access. Complete transparency. No more secrets, no more wondering what I'm involved in. Why now? Because 2 years ago you asked me to be all in. To really change, really trust you. This is me showing you I have." He closed my fingers around the key. "Everything I am, everything I've been, it's yours to know. No more barriers between us." Tears burned in my eyes. "This is the scariest gift anyone's ever given me. I know. But you've been brave enough to stand beside me through everything else. I'm trusting you'll be brave enough for this too." He cupped my face. "I love you, Sophia. Not despite who you are, but because of it. Because you challenged me, changed me, made me want to be better. I love you too." I kissed him softly. "Even though you're the most complicated man I've ever met. Technically, I kidnapped you. I'd say we're past complicated and into completely insane. True, but it's our kind of insane." We stayed in the gallery until late, talking about the future we were building together. The businesses we'd run, the life we'd create, the balance we'd maintain between his past and our future. It wouldn't be easy. His history would always be there, always casting shadows. The FBI hadn't forgotten about him, even if they'd never proven their suspicions. His old enemies still occasionally tested him, though less frequently now. But we'd faced everything together so far. We'd survived the kidnapping, the FBI investigation, the complicated process of him leaving criminal life behind. We'd built something real from the wreckage of our catastrophic first meeting. 6 months later, Dante proposed, properly this time, not with threats, but with love. We married in a small ceremony with just close family and friends, Emma as my maid of honor, Marco as his best man. Isabella gave a toast that made everyone laugh. To my brother, who had to kidnap someone to finally find love. Not the traditional route, but nothing about this family is traditional. At the reception, my mother pulled me aside. "Are you happy, sweetie? Really happy?" I looked across the room at Dante, who was deep in conversation with my father about art authentication techniques. 2 years ago, I'd been a terrified graduate student being held prisoner. Now I was watching my husband bond with my father over shared interests. "Yes, Mom. I'm really happy." "Good. Though I have to ask, how did you two actually meet?" The story about an art conference never quite added up. I hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. He made a mistake that brought us together. Could have been catastrophic. Instead, it became the best thing that ever happened to both of us. Love works in mysterious ways. The most mysterious, I agreed. That night, in the penthouse we now shared, Dante and I stood on the balcony overlooking the city, his arms wrapped around me from behind, chin resting on my shoulder. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About how we started? About choosing this complicated life?" "Only one," I said honestly. "I regret that you felt you had to kidnap someone to get their attention. Your personality is magnetic enough without the criminal tactics," he laughed. "Noted for future reference. Though hopefully there won't be a future reference." "Definitely not. You're stuck with me now." "Best kidnapping outcome ever," he murmured. I turned in his arms, kissing him deeply. "For the record, I would have gone out with you if you'd just asked. The whole abduction thing was completely unnecessary. Where's the fun in that? Normal people value boring courtships. Lucky for both of us, we're not normal people." He kissed me again, soft and sweet. "Thank you for giving me a chance, for seeing past what I was to what I could become. Thank you for being willing to change, for trusting me enough to be vulnerable." We stood together as the city lights sparkled around us. Two people who'd found each other in the most impossible circumstances and built something beautiful from the chaos. I'd been kidnapped by mistake. The wrong girl, the wrong place, the wrong name. But somehow, impossibly, It had led me to exactly the right person. Sometimes the best love stories start with the worst meet-cutes. Sometimes the person you're supposed to be with finds you in the most unexpected, dangerous, completely inappropriate way, and sometimes you're brave enough, or crazy enough, to embrace the chaos and build something real from the wreckage. Dante had told me once that I'd been the wrong girl. But as we stood together, married and happy, and building a legitimate future, I knew the truth. I'd been exactly the right girl. For him. For this impossible love. For this life we'd created together. All because his men had grabbed the wrong Sophia off a New York street 2 years ago. Best mistake they ever made.